The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge.
Greetings, folks. I'm Chris Temple, editor and publisher of the National Investor. And to just a few minutes today, I'm going to be joined by my friend Deepak Varshney. He is the CEO of Usha Resources, a company that's been on my recommended list for several months now, as we look at what are the more promising exploration plays in the lithium space, given the long-term prognosis for lithium. You can find Usha on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol USHA, just like the name implies. And to get it in the US over-the-counter market, you simply add the regular F at the end of it. So USHAF here in the US over-the-counter market. Lithium, we've talked about from time to time. It's one of the key battery metals going forward. There's a lot of debate over whether the batteries in the future, how much phosphate they're going to have. The LFP battery craze is a big one. We've talked about that. The better performing ones, of course, have got nickel, cobalt, maybe manganese. As we're recording this, we just got the news, not for today's subject, of course, but that China is going to consider putting export controls of various kinds on graphite. And that opens up a whole other can of worms for the future of the electric vehicle industry. But bottom line, folks, the reason why I have said for a while that we've seen the beginnings of a secular bull market for commodities that will be with us for many, many years is that with all of these things, lithium included, as you see here on the screen, we have structural lack of supply. There is simply not enough development projects in the pipeline to supply the lithium that's going to be needed in the years immediately ahead, even if we come within a county of meeting a lot of these professed goals that are out there for EV buildup and so forth. So as time goes on, we're going to see development projects that are going to kind of rise to the top. We've been fortunate at the National Investor to have already had a couple of 10 baggers plus in this space, Frontier Lithium being one, Piedmont Lithium being another. I've got a few other ones on my list now that I've got high hopes for, including Usha. And what's timely right now in the fall here of 2023 is that, and we've seen this a couple or three times in the last 4 or 5 years with lithium, you get a big rip higher, everything moves up, and then it goes the other way. Usually an overreaction to some news out of China, or maybe we're not going to quite build EVs as fast as we thought or something like that. Doesn't change the big picture. But you've had a lot of hot money come and go, and even good companies. And I mentioned Piedmont and Frontier both. They're 2/3 off of their highs here in the fall of 2023. Neither one of them has any business being at those prices, but they are. And Usha and everybody else has suffered as well. So this is an especially good time to visit, or as the case may be, to revisit Usha. So without further ado, I want to bring on my friend Deepak Varshney, the CEO. Deepak, welcome.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
Anytime. Hey, folks, Deepak and I are going to talk about the big picture things. We're going to talk about the two major projects and perhaps some coming attractions that Usha has in the works. And so here on the screen, we want to make sure that you're aware that he and or myself may be making some forward-looking statements. Sometimes the best laid plans don't turn out exactly as you expect, all good intentions notwithstanding. So realize that we can't guarantee anything. We can only tell you where things are at now and where he hopes they're going to go and where I hope they're going to go. And likewise, here on the screen is our own statement from the National Investor Publishing. Usha is already a recommendation of mine in the National Investor, but as other companies do, they have also paid us to do some copywriting, media work, and some outreach for them, of which this video is a part. So be aware of that. Also, before we get going, make sure that following your digesting this video, make sure you visit their website, get on their email list, follow them on social media, kick the tires, make sure that you do your homework on a company, and maybe you're going to end up in the end as excited as I am, because one of the things when you've got a whole ocean of little exploration companies out there, you've got to look at a lot of different factors, see how many boxes you can check. And what struck me early this year when I first became aware of USHA is just how much other people, including a couple of key colleagues of mine, independent of one another, like this company. They like Deepak, they like his background, and they said, hey, here's one that you really ought to have on your radar. So make sure you keep up with me too as we go on, because we'll have updates from time to time on a company. Now, Deepak, there's a lot of different types of projects in the world. We've all heard of the big clay lithium deposits. We've heard of the big salars in South America. We've heard of hard rock deposits. I mentioned Piedmont and Frontier both earlier. Those are both hard rock deposits. But in your case, you've got a foot in two major different types of properties. Early on, the flagship, I guess, that we're going to start with for USHA is Jackpot Lake in Nevada. And folks, one of the things I liked about Jackpot Lake when I first heard about it is that this thing is kind of in its own little world. And Deepak's going to explain that to you geologically and whatnot. And you've had some incredibly impressive grades with some of the early exploration there, several times beyond what is economical for a lot of present producers. So tell us a little bit about how you stumbled onto Jackpot Lake and what's going on with it right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's really timely you talk about what happens with lithium prices worldwide, and how it is cyclical. I think the trend is your friend, and the trend is upwards. And so you got to look beyond this 3-month cycle, the 6-month cycle, and look back what's happened in the last 6 years. And so that actually is how we end up with this wonderful project. Back in 2019, 2020, when lithium had again dropped significantly after a bit of a run, a company called Ares, who had done the work on Jackpot Lake to really get it drill ready. They'd done a lot of geophysics. They'd built on historical work by the U.S. Geological Society, passed. And the reason they passed is because lithium prices had come down immensely. And, for them, they made the decision that they wanted to go into production, do a different kind of story. And so this had been, they'd done the work, but this is something that was no longer a core asset for them. And, obviously there's a lot of this business relationships. I talked to James, I saw the potential. A lot of times people joke because I'm a geologist. I'm also a CEO. So, I work on the capital market side, but I saw immediately the potential, right? Because I think one of the facts that people often overlook is that the only domestic production of lithium in North America today is at Silver Peak. And that is a lithium brine mine, right? All these other projects we talk about, which are on the way to production, we'll see with TLC, obviously you see Hard Rock with Frontier. Brine's the only actual producing asset in the United States. And so we saw the work that they had done. We had, and we still have, a great structure, and so we were able to, go to them, put together what I thought was a pretty reasonable deal. We now have actually exercised 100% of the option. And I think when you talk about being on its little own world here, that's exactly it. And that's what attracted us the most, right? I think a big challenge in Nevada is you'll often find companies will be buying land that is, postage stamp, that's right by an existing project, no concern about the future development of the project, right? You need to worry about water rights. You need to worry about, First Nations. You need to worry about the environmental side of things. You need to worry about all these different things if you ever want to get your project past the finish line. And so we saw this was in its own location. We knew that if we were able to find something, we'd be able to go out and actually acquire all the land around the project, the core holdings. And so here we are today with a project that it's, we're very happy with the work we've seen so far, and geologically especially. I mean, really it comes down, it looks like a clone of Clayton Valley, which is very unique on its own. And we're unique in that regards to be able to match what they've done or they've shown. And it's a good spot to be in, right? And I think we'll see coming in the next few years, especially when you see the Exxon investment in brine, that this is a part of the lithium sector. We see a lot of development going moving forward.
I'm glad you mentioned Exxon. I want to talk about that, but backing up to something else you said too, Deepak, and I think that folks that are watching this maybe already have an inkling of this, but look, in the recent past, everybody and their dog and the fleas on the dog have said that we got a lithium project. You know, they don't have anything
Yeah.
economic, but
Yeah.
lithium is everywhere.
Yeah.
And one of the pitfalls for investors is to be able to sift among all of these different stories out there. A lot of companies have repurposed themselves because lithium was getting hot and said, oh, we've got lithium now. Well, yeah, you probably do, but it doesn't mean you've got enough of it or in the right quantities or the right kind of setting or any of the rest of these things. So there are a lot of these, and I love your comment, postage stamp companies out there that get a little piece of ground and say, hey, we're next to XYZ company. And they put out a press release of what XYZ company just did, nothing about what they just did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and on Exxon, I think it's important for people to realize not that this is the only place where lithium will come from in the future, but it is so plentiful. And this is such an industry in its infancy still that all things, and they're not the only one doing it, Exxon. You've got companies that have drilled for oil, and of course, what do you get as a byproduct of that is water. Guess what? It's salt water. Guess what? Some of that salt and content is sufficient lithium that can be recovered. So it's not like this is rocket science necessarily. This stuff is out there, it's in nature. And the question is, what are the better projects? And so what's unique about Jackpot Lake, and you compared it to Clayton Valley, is that you've figured that this is conceptually its own basin. I mean, it's all on its own. This isn't like Argentina where you've got several good projects next to one another that have all got the same surface footprint, but they're all going to be able to produce from the same solar, the same underground body. You've kind of looks like you got your own.
Well, that's it. And you know what? That was a big part of our strategy, right? We wanted to, there's a Bible from 1976 that the United States Geological Society, they'd gone out in the state of Nevada. They had worked across the state to test different salars. The three that really are highlighted in this are, of course, Kings Valley, which is the TLC project up north, Clayton Valley, Silver Peak, and they call this Dry Lake, right? And these three projects really stood out amongst the 100+ projects they'd sampled. And really for us, it was, okay, you know what, if we're going to make a discovery, we want to be able to see this develop, further. In Clayton Valley, a big challenge for some of the companies surrounding the Albemarle project there is water rights, right? There's so much competition. They've, of course, been producing since 1966. So for us, it was, okay, let's go find a project that makes a lot of sense geologically. The models showed this was going to be a big enclosed basin with a big target. And that's what we found, right? And then we were able to, because we're first in this location, to then go up and stake all the land around us so that we own all the strategic land around us, right? And so now we're in this position where we've got solar facilities to the north, solar facilities to the south, a highway to the east, immediately adjacent to our property. We own all the strategic land within this basin, right? We're almost up to 9,000 acres here. And like, this is geologically, this is unique, right? I think often, the way I like to describe to people is when you look at a clay project, those are really, in my view, failed brine projects, right? What that is that there's no water there, there's no brine there, the clay never was able to leach out and get in. And so it's a whole different technology. And I think they're working hard to make clay succeed, right? But it's because brines are truly unique. And here, what we've seen is, it's rare, especially as a geologist, when you go and you build a model, you say, look, we're going to have, a thick coarse grained unit, which is what you need. You need that aquifer to be able to pump out the brine, right? You need those sands and those gravels. That's what's unique about Clayton Valleys. It starts very shallow. It goes very deep. That's really what their focus is right now, is they've been drilling into that coarse grain zone. It's not common throughout Nevada. Most basins are too deep, right? We're only 2,000 feet. Some of these basins are 3, 4, 5,000, and it doesn't work, right? But we had that zone start as shallow as 1,300 feet, right? We had these thick evaporite layers. That's what you see at Clayton Valley. It was very nice to actually, you're always a little scared, I'd say, when you start a drill program, and because you don't know what is actually going to be down there, right? And you get, we started drilling, and it matched everything we were hoping to see here, right? And so it's nice. And this is, I think, real reason why people see the value in our project, right? We get approached all the time by major caps, by, gigafactories, refineries, all these people, much larger, I would say, players than us in the market today. They come to us and we're actually working with some very big caps right now, obviously under NDA, so I can't say who, but they're helping us work through our program because for them, there's such a deficit on the supply side. They have every interest in working with us to help advance this project to secure that supply, right? Like it's purely commercial, their interest. They're not doing this they love me, great. I don't think they're helping us just because they love me. They're doing this because they love the potential offtake opportunity, right?
Well, and
And
they
so
they know that, so they have sense enough to know, as we've seen sporadically from other companies, other OEMs and automakers and battery makers and whatnot, that they can't sit around twiddling their thumbs. They got to start tying up supplies for the future if they want to have an industry, if they want to have products to sell. I want to move on in a minute to what has become another big emergent story for you. But you mentioned the drilling at Jackpot Lake. Here on the screen, we've got one of your press releases from early in the year, high grades there, a lot of hope for how this basin at Jackpot Lake, this underground basin, may develop. Where are we at right now as we're closing out 2023? I know you've had a couple of hiccups and some equipment issues along the way. Tell us what to expect near term and maybe into 2024.
Yeah, so we had mechanical failures on the drill rig. So unfortunately, so we were able to get down there and we were doing core drilling, which I'm always a fan of because you actually get to see what's down there and you can get something out of the core. And so that's how we know geologically this is a clone of Clayton Valley. That for us is that is the proof's in the pudding. The core is what showed us this is what we're hoping to see. Because of the mechanical failures, we weren't able to install a properly sampleable well. One of the biggest things is that when you're drilling these, they're essentially water wells, and you have to go through some specific methodologies to make sure that the samples you collect are 43101 compliant. Otherwise, you can't be releasing to the public. So obviously, we're excited about what we've seen, but I can't really talk about too much of that. But our plan is, we're paused right now because of weather conditions. It's been a rainy season. It's a salar. So what happens is when rain comes in, there's nowhere for the water to go, right? So essentially you end up having quicksand. It dries out after a few days, a week, and then more rain comes. And so we're paused right now, especially honestly on the advice of some of the bigger caps we're working with
some people saw what happened with Burning Man this summer and what a mess that was.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, that's actually what we saw at our property too, right? We actually saw it looked like soup out there. And so, the plan here is we're going to wait out. I know it sounds silly to see rain in Nevada, but it does happen. There is a monsoon season. And, on the advice of these bigger players that we're talking to, we're going to wait out the season and then come back here in the winter and resume drilling, right? And ultimately, we want to be able to put out that 43101 resource, and that's a big goal of ours in 2024. Because I think
you've defined the structural setting to your satisfaction, that you are more convinced that this is kind of the basin, the kind of structural setting like Clayton Valley. And so the next step, where you hit this roadblock recently, is just to get the water well type thing down there to actually sample the brines.
That's exactly it, right? I mean, that's what I'd say. I tell people, you nailed it, right? Because really, what it comes down to is all we've done is make ourselves more convinced than ever that this is going to be a big project. Again, we talked to some of the, I would say, I'm a geologist. I don't take any no pain in saying that some of these guys are better geologists than I am that I'm talking to, and they're excited. So it gives me more confidence than ever when we look at this. And we'll be back. We're going to get to that resource. That's our plan here in 2024. And it really does fit well with what we're doing otherwise, the company, right? Between the hard rock and some of the other stuff we'll get to here.
Well, and that's a perfect segue into the next subject, is that you told me back when we first started talking months ago that expect to see more out of us. We're not going to be a one asset company. There's a lot of opportunities in this space, a lot of ground that until just the last few years was never, I mean, it might have been nickel, it might have been gold, it might have been nothing. All of a sudden, everybody is on a hunt, like we alluded to earlier,
Yeah.
for lithium. So, of a few acquisitions that you've made up in Ontario in the hard rock category, the biggest one is by far White Willow. And I know you guys have been excited about that. You've been doing a lot of greenfield work, and this thing could be immense.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is one where I actually do pat myself on the back as a geologist because, we were late to the hard rock game. People are very excited. We actually really wanted to find an asset, again, similar to Jackpot, where we felt that if we did the work, we could see a big deposit. And again, a big challenge is, even in the hard rock space, is a lot of lithium, because the funny thing about the hard rock side in Canada, especially, is some of these projects have been drilled for decades and nobody cared, right? You could have 2 years ago even just gone and found spodumene and core that nobody had ever cared about. Gold projects, people like Patriot Battery Metals is a gold company before it ended up being like one of the darling of the lithium industry in North America. And so for us,
That's a good point that made the point I made a minute ago is that Patriot, they didn't start out thinking that they were going to find all this lithium and be one of the more recent darlings in the industry.
No, not at all, right? And so for us, we said, okay, so what, everybody's been chasing after pegmatites, right? And again, like, is lithium that theme? Lithium is common. Pegmatites are very common. They're everywhere, right? They're literally everywhere. So you have to find the right kind of pegmatites, right? And so, when you look at the system, these are LCT, right? So L is what everyone's looking for, lithium. The C is cesium, the T is tantalum, right? And so what we recognized was, if you look for the C and the T, the L should be there, because that's what you find typically, is that lithium is going to be associated with cesium and tantalum. And so White Willow, which has really become a second flagship, as you said, for us, is, we originally had a high-grade tantalite showing. It's 120,000 ppm, 15%. So put that in perspective, ore grade tantalum is like 200 ppm, right? So we knew immediately this was a really interesting project to go check out. The only other place we'd seen coarse grained tantalite like this was at other deposits in Ontario. And so what really we've done over the last 6 months at White Willow is taken this project from a single showing, and we've grown it to over 25 kilometers of strike now. So this is proven to be, and this is why I like to give myself a pat on the back, but this was something where we zigged when everybody was zagging and they're chasing after, in James Bay or what have you. We said, we're going to find a project. It's in the same structural corridor as some of these major deposits, but it's on its own. And we've been quietly able to assemble over 20,000 hectares of this project, which has a system as big as what you see at Patriot Battery Metals Corvette project, right? And, the geochemistry, look, we've been in the field for almost 3 months now. We're going to keep working throughout the winter here. And we're going to be more excited because think we're on to another company making project here. And this with that strike length of the system, we think we have multiple potential deposits here, right? Some of these pegmatites are over, like this new area we found called Bingo. This looks like it's almost a 2 kilometer strike length dike, right? Several hundred meters wide, very evolved in that spodumene zone that you need to be in. And that's just one example of a target on this property. And that's what we've got to so far. We've got over 10 of these targets that we like. We want to go drill them out. And it's hard not to be excited because, it feels like every day in the field we find something better. And so it's just, it's been, the market aside, I got to say, like, as an exploration geologist, it's been a lot of fun this year working through our projects.
Oh, I'm sure. It sounds like it has been. And you aren't the only ones excited about it. You've got potential, I don't know if it's not officially yet partner, but it's fairly common knowledge from people that follow natural resources generally, and especially hard rock lithium specifically, that some very smart people in this world are in Australia, because that's where there are some of these projects as well. So you may have a shot in the arm coming in the near term. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think so. Right. It's interesting. This was just something by, I'd say, more chance than anything else. Right. But you need good luck. And we found this project, we've developed this asset, and now the Aussies are coming, right? That's what that, like they love our hard rock assets. They do love Jackpot too, but they're hard rock lithium is in their back door. Western Australia, the biggest lithium companies in the world are headquartered out there. And so we've been aggressively working through partners down there. We've been planning a dual listing down there. It's the Aussie market, especially for lithium, the ASX, it's the best market in the world, right? It's got great liquidity. It has no shortage of long-term investors who believe in mining. They really take a look at your company, and they're with you, from start to finish. It's not fast money. And so we've been fortunate. We've got, I gotta say, we're in double-digit NDAs at this point, where we've been meeting with a lot of people, and everybody just wants to buy our projects first, right? And I tell everybody, I say, guys, like, we're looking for a real partner that's going to help us advance this asset, or we'll just continue with the dual list, and you guys can participate in that way. And there's been no hesitation, no shortage. We were talking to the biggest funds in the world. Again, it's been a lot of fun, right? It's nice to get to preen and go around and tell everyone, look at how great our projects are, and they agree. And so it looks like we're gonna have a dual list coming up. We're gonna have some really big strategics that are gonna be taking a part of that with us. And so I'm really excited, right? Because like for 2024, I see we'll have a ton of work going on in the field between going to that resource at Jackpot Lake. We really want to be drilling White Willow. We already have over 10 targets, and we will have the support and the treasury to do that, right? We're in good shape right now. We've got a very low burn. We still have working capital of almost $1.5 million, right? We're no by any means on fumes, but it's good to, I think, really, I'm excited, right? I'm really excited with 2024 between all the work we've done on our projects today and all the things that are coming, and the new markets we're going to be exploring. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, it sounds it, and I'm going to look forward to being on the ride with you, Deepak. As you know, this is an interesting time, folks, because as we said at the outset, this space has made a lot of investors a lot of money along the way. It's caused a lot of disappointments along the way. I remember vividly back in 2018, after we had the first big move in lithium stocks, and some of you who have been around this long remember this, that Morgan Stanley put out a report early in the year, said, oh, this industry's got ahead of itself. There's too much money that's been invested in lithium, and there's not the industry yet that needs it. And so a lot of great stories, boom, they're down 70, 80, 90% in price. Then all of a sudden, the building blocks do start to come together for the Teslas and the Rivians and the other companies that are making electric vehicles. We've seen the early stages of a full-fledged industry. And then we've, during that time, had two now distinct major moves higher. Didn't matter what kind of a lithium company you were, if you had nothing, just but lithium in your name, which is why everybody did it. Your share price.
Yeah, you say that again.
Yeah, and now we're back down again to where it's time for people to double down on good companies, Usha, in my opinion, being one of them, or look for other opportunities. Because, folks, this is still very, very early. I'm one who believes that there's been a lot of false hopes, I think, with electrification and carbon reduction. I think that there's some more reality checks coming. But there isn't any question, especially in urban areas, by the time my children are my age, if you're in a big city, there's not going to be very many internal combustion engines left. You're going to have hydrogen powered larger mass transit vehicles. You're going to have electric power for most of the rest of them. There'll still be, gas burning cars or diesel burning cars if you're going to take a cross country trip or something. And it's an oversimplification, but you get what I mean. So anyway, 2024 is shaping up good. I hope that the deal with the Aussies comes off as expected. I'm going to be anxiously looking for that. And again, folks, to keep up with Usha on this news, anything else they do, make sure you visit their website, visit them on social media, and as well as yours truly. We put out a lot of special issues from time to time that talk about commodities generally, battery metals specifically. So make sure that you avail yourselves of those also. Deepak, any parting words?
Just that I think you've nailed it. There is, we're in a downtrend for lithium, but the future is bright. The future is green. The future is clean. I think what you're going to see is because of the market strife, a lot of the companies that really shouldn't have been lithium companies are going to fail, and you're going to see the companies that have real projects and are trying to build something better succeed. I firmly believe, and I think you do too, that Usha is one of them. And really, that's why, I hope people, follow our story. We have a lot. It's funny. We see I talk to guys and they say the market's bad. I don't want to do any work. And I think that's ridiculous, right? I think that, if you believe in your projects, which we do, you have to keep working on them. You got to keep moving forward. The market will wake up one day and realize what you have. And we see that all the time with these companies. Frontier and Piedmont did not, at some point in time, they were also below $1, right? They were also below 50 cents. They were also below 20 cents. These were not the companies they were today. They got to where they were through hard work, perseverance, and knowing that they had the goods, and they just kept working on them. And that's really what I'm hoping to do and accomplish. So
yeah, and I of course wish you all the success with that. I'm going to enjoy it along with you as the months and hopefully years go by. Deepak Varshney, CEO of Usha Resources, thanks again for your time today. And folks, be sure again, as I said, keep in touch with both of us. Take care, and Deepak, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.